Hello patrons, welcome to a brand new editing tutorial. This is going to be a tutorial sort of covering one of the visuals that you see in the Bitcoin series at the moment, which I've been working on, and that is the sort of computer digital look. This is sort of, because I know a few of you have been asking about several different tutorials around some of the effects and things that I use of the Bitcoin series. And so this is kind of going to be part of a chain of tutorials really. And it's very interesting, but I thought I would start with this specifically, like recreating this visual, because it is so interesting to see actually how easy it is to do, but it looks very interesting on the audience's end because they don't know what's actually going on behind the scenes. But behind the scenes, it's really just a combination of like textures and overlays to create something that really looks like a computer screen, right? And it almost ruins it for you when you know like how it was actually created. But obviously that's what editing tutorials are all about. They're about giving you the behind the scenes look of how a certain effect was created. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, initially I was inspired by a After Effects template, which was on Motion Array, but for the life of me, I can't find it again, which is annoying because I do want to show you where I sort of get the inspiration for different ideas in the videos. And what you should know, and I really want to emphasize this, is that all kind of creative work, and really this can extend out to a lot of other work as well, it's a combination of a bunch of different ideas that somebody has seen from this person, that person, whatever, combined together to create their own unique thing. It's very difficult now to ever get like original work. It's always a combination of a bunch of things, but that's what makes it great. And I think that's common in all kinds of art. So that being said, it was on Motion Array. It was like a sort of computer screen looking thing. I saw it, I clicked on it immediately. I downloaded the template, just looked at the assets that they used and how they did it, and then sort of downloaded those assets and recreated a similar type of look, just fit more for the Bitcoin video series. So that being said, I will show you. So in this folder here, we've got all the assets that I had downloaded from that template, and you've got like a dust particle here. You've got this reflection.png, which obviously looks like it's sort of like a reflection of something which is blurred out. You've got this, which is scratches, which is very hard to see on here, but you'll see it when it's in After Effects. And we got another scratches thing over here, which you can't see properly. I think it gets a bit weird on the sort of Windows photo viewer, but whatever. We're going to take all of these. I'm going to drag them into After Effects. I'm going to show you how we sort of piece together this computer screen looking thing. First thing I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to create a new solid, a new black solid, and we're going to pop in, let's start with a reflection. So we got this reflection here. Obviously this doesn't look that great. I think we zoom in a little bit, and all we did here, there wasn't any change in the mode for this. It was just on a simple normal blending mode. Open up the opacity and just drag that down to something like this. So it almost looks like it's very faint, a very, very faint sort of reflection in what you can imagine would be a computer screen. And honestly, that already looks very interesting. It already looks very interesting. And in fact, if you were to if you did like 3D this layer, add in a camera and move the camera around, like it does look like there's an actual reflection in the background. In fact, if you like change where the view is of this layer on like a 3D screen, and then you have other things in there, it just looks so much better. But we'll kind of get onto that in just a second. Right now, let's just backspace all of this stuff that we did. So we've got the reflection in. Let's add in, let's see, the scratch. Yeah, maybe not that one. Let's try this scratch too, I think is, yeah, so this one is a little more interesting. This is just very subtle cracks that you can kind of see that sort of adds something a bit interesting to the computer screen. It's very, very subtle, just small cracks on a screen, almost like just little marks that you might see on, any kind of terminal. So we'll leave that like that. Then we'll add in something a bit bigger. So let's put in this scratch. Just move that down. Okay, so that is a lot. There is a whole lot going on here. I created a mask, and what we do is we inverted it. No, we didn't invert it. We had the mask there, and we just increased the feather a little bit. And that just does something a little bit different. It makes it not so crazy and all over the place, but at the same time, you still get that look as if it's a sort of computer screen terminal. And we'll drop the opacity just very slightly like that. Yeah, and that looks so much better as like a computer screen terminal. I mean, honestly, you can drop the opacity even more. Something like that. Yeah, that's good. Cool. And then we'll add in, let's see. Let's have a look at dust. Yeah, dust was one of those ones as well where it was, we sort of had to do a mask on here. Oh, it's usually best to like lock your layers before you start making all these kind of changes. Let's do dust. Dust is this. And it's again very, very crowded. And so what we might do is just add in something more of like a, over there, mask, open that up, and then just add a bit of a feather. Maybe get more of an expanded mask. Okay, and then should we drop the opacity a little bit? I think that's fine. Nice. Okay, great. I'm happy with that. What else we've got? So we've got dust, scratch 2, reflection. I think that's everything, right? So right there, we have created our computer terminal. This is it. This is what it looks like. It has that computer look. It looks like, you know, a real computer sort of terminal, old screen that you might see with all these little dust bits here and like a bit of scratches and whatnot. It looks a bit worn. And then you've got the very subtle reflection. I'll just I'll hide it so you can kind of see the effect that the reflection has. Actually isn't looking like a huge effect, and that might be because we've got to add a screen onto, yeah, we've got to add a screen blending mode onto some of these things. There we go. So now we're starting to see the reflection and whatnot come through. There we go. That looks there. That looks far more normal than what we had before. So let's now just drop the opacity on some of this stuff. I think the reflection could be just slightly less. Maybe we'll just drop this subtly. Scratch. Drop that again. Sweet. So I think that looks good. I think that looks like a computer terminal. We've got the scratches, got the bits of dust. The reflection does actually, now we can kind of see what the reflection does for it. And it just makes it look interesting. A nice, interesting visual. Now, to add sort of the cream on top with the text that looks like a computer text or whatever, I use a particular font, which was Callisto. And Callisto has this lined version of the font. So normally Callisto just looks like this. Test. Just looks something like this. Maybe we'll make that a bit larger so you can see what that looks like. So like this, pretty bland, boring, nothing crazy. But what it also has, Callisto, it came with this sort of lined thing, which now it kind of gives you that retro sort of 8-bit kind of look. And obviously there's a bunch of fonts, and I imagine you can get a bunch of stuff online that will give you a similar kind of look. This is just the one that I used. So we've got this test, and let's now drag this behind the screen. I'll kind of do that to all of them. And we'll actually just lock these layers, and then we may want to actually just hide it. It will make it easier for us to continue working. So with a lot of like the scenes in the Bitcoin, in the Bitcoin series, like a lot of those After Effects compositions, these would have been hidden and they would have been just copied and pasted over onto every composition that required the computer screen look. And so when they're hidden, we can just hit this little guy over here, and then they're away, they're gone. We can't mess around with them. Actually, it's normally better if we just lock the layers before we hide them. So there you go, they're locked. We can't mess around with them anymore. We can just deal with the important stuff. So we've got test over here. Let's drag this now, make this smaller. Something like that. Let's just make it one test. Like so. There you go. And then I guess what I also did a lot was like adding in the glow effect. And with the glow effect, as you can see, you can change up what the radius looks like. But then it just gives it the extra sort of shine and look to it that just makes it feel like, oh, hey, like this looks like something that's appearing on a computer terminal. And now what you can do to make this image all interesting is if you do end up 3D, making these objects all kind of 3D, you can do this interesting thing where, let me think I'm going to do this. So we're going to 3D this test layer. We're going to go and 3D all of these. And then let's go and make this into 2 views. And then let's have the reflection be further back, like that. So further back reflection. Let's some of the scratches. I think we can keep the scratches there, and then we'll have the test just slightly back. So it's almost like in an actual computer screen, this is the screen that people are seeing. Then this is sort of the pixels that are slightly more inside the screen. And what this will do is when we actually, and obviously the reflection is just a little bit further behind, which I think, hopefully, if I'm just imagining in my head what that might look like, will make it look like a real reflection in the back. So now that we 3D'd all of this, let's just add a camera. And let's just begin to actually just add in a little bit of a camera angle here to have a look at what that might look like. So we'll skip ahead, orbit around. Yeah, so you see how sort of the text is almost like it's moving in, like there's a computer screen, right? And then there's like a, there you go. So if we go to this side, you sort of see what it looks like. So there's the text in the middle there, there's the computer screen over here, and then there's obviously these sort of reflection bits right at the back. I don't know if that actually logically makes sense. I wonder if like it makes sense if the reflection is more on the surface level. So we can actually try that. The reason I like is it just makes it feel like the reflection is separated. And it does something subtle with what the reflection looks like to make it look as if there is a real reflection there. But I think that looks good. And what might probably look better is if the text was just slightly more forward and closer to the screen. So there isn't as huge of a gap. Now let's try orbiting. Yeah, so that looks a lot more interesting now. And you can create all sorts of interesting kind of camera visuals and whatever. And that's basically how this visual was created for the Bitcoin series. This was a really simple tutorial, just a little look at how you can use textures and whatnot to make the video look interesting and create these like really interesting visuals. Feel free to, I will try and include these assets as a download link so you can use them for whatever you want. I mean, honestly, they're dust, scratches, all of this stuff you can find in a whole bunch of areas, but they can be used for so many different things. Either way, my friends, I hope that was helpful to you all. There'll be another Bitcoin tutorial coming through, and potentially more, a little more to do with how I animated the ledgers that you see in part 1 of the series, but we'll talk about that in another video. I hope this was helpful to some degree. And with that being said, I wish you the best rest of the day, my friends. Hand to head, you can't see me, but salute.